What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and today we got the FEH channel for Book 10 and we have got chosen Alfonse as our Book 10 freebie. There is Fimbulvetr, the new Book 10 OC, but it seems like she is mainly going to be our enemy. So chosen heroes are basically a new type of legendary heroes that can boost your scoring in arena, and you can give their power to any kind of other unit, and basically that unit is going to be scoring as much as that chosen hero, and of course the merges on that chosen hero is going to be reflected in the scoring. So that's pretty much their way of incentivizing whales so that they pull for the chosen heroes. But I do feel like this can be helpful for a lot of people because you can basically use your favorites in arena, which you couldn't do before because you needed to run some kind of dual skill, which doesn't really make sense because you're going to be losing out on a lot of effects that you could get from many of the modern slotty skills. And the interesting thing is that you can swap around the power of this chosen hero on many of your other units. It's just that their element stays. So basically in the future, you can try and have multiple chosen heroes for specific seasons, and if you have that power on a target unit, then they also get weapons triangle advantage in the Colosseum game modes, and they also deal 20 true damage and have 20 flat damage reduction. Usually the first few units that we get for any kind of new unit type are tame. So maybe in the future when we look back upon this banner, we see chosen Alfonse as a tame unit, but right now he looks really solid. So he is a sword infantry unit and he has got chosen sword as his preferred weapon. So this has got -1 special cooldown, and it also gives him +16 attack, defense, and resistance to him, and this is conditionless. So I guess the effects in these weapons are going to be conditionless going forward, because that's what we're seeing with Harmonic Ike, with Lyn, the units on this banner. So they just get all of the effects from their weapon. There's no condition whatsoever, and that can be a bit annoying if you are forced into a bad matchup against these kinds of units, because even if you take out all of their allies and if they are the last unit standing, there's nothing you can do. Alfonse also gets 25 true damage except for the AoE specials, and he has got 2 layers of flat damage reduction, 15 flat damage reduction on the regular attacks, including the AoE specials, and he gets another layer of 15 flat damage reduction against the specials, including AoE specials. So Alfonse is quite resilient to the AoE specials, which is not the case for a lot of the Omni tanks that we've got right now. And he also has these stone tiles from his special, so he is pretty tanky against the AoE specials. And he also gets 50% damage reduction piercing built into this weapon, and he also has a dual phase brave effect that is dependent on if he has got more defense than foe, or if the number of allies in 3 rows and 3 columns is 2 or more, which is not really all that hard to get. So most of the time he is going to be having his dual phase brave effect active, and this is the main difference between him and Brave Alfonse. So this chosen Alfonse has got this kind of brave effect, which makes him pretty solid because he is really slow. So getting a follow-up attack out of him is going to be tough. So having this brave attack is so helpful. And then he also has some buffs built into his weapon that are activated at start of both player phase and enemy phase. So he gives himself and the allies in 2 spaces +6 attack and defense buff, the bulwark status, and also cooldown +1 per attack. So this is his way of triggering his special easily with the brave attacks, and bulwark status is good to have so that he can prevent the backline sniping from a lot of the foes that seem to have the true range style. And bulwark effect is pretty good to have on a unit like him who is not that weak to AoE specials, so he can prevent the enemy units from hitting his allies and basically going behind him. And he also has a special in Ascendant King, so this is going to be a 3 cooldown special with his weapon, and it does give him the 40% unpierceable damage reduction. It also has counter distant travel +1 built in it, which is extremely good, and this can go up to max 4 it also has distant counter built in it, so it just gives so many things to him. And he is the second unit in the game to have the Gallop status after Emblem Sigurd. So this is going to be giving him the +2 movement, and this also means that he is not really prevented by the stalled status, because stalled status only affects the +1 movement status. It doesn't really affect the Gallop status, so despite him being so slow, he is not really going to be bothered by the stalled status, and he is going to be a pretty solid unit in summoner duels because of this Gallop status, and especially with some of the crumbs that you can use to pretty much copy this from him. And you also get insane range for an infantry melee unit, and just like Brave Alfonse, he does have the attack, defense, and resistance great talent, so he gives that to himself and the 3 rows and 3 column allies with +2 great talent at sort of every turn, +4 when his special triggers, and the limit for him is going to be +20, whereas the allies have the +10 limit. And he also enables the Divine Vein Stone terrain at start of his enemy phase, so this is another thing that can make him pretty solid against the AoE special units, but you gotta watch out for his stone tiles along with the core and ring users on your team, because the terrain is going to be clashing. And this can also be a way of countering young Camilla, who can set up her haste rain right from the start. So both of the terrains basically cancel each other out. And Alfonse is extremely bulky, so he can have chance against her to survive. And he can also frontline against a lot of the modern threats. He does not have as much unpierceable damage reduction as Harmonic Ike that we have recently seen, but still, overall, he is a really good frontliner, all things considered. As you saw in the trailer, he was not really taking that much damage from Brave Male Byleth, and he does have an incredibly min-max stat line, and because of that, he's also able to run a ploy skill and pre-employ, so that is going to be making it easier for him to trigger his special. And he has got Warrior's Blow, which we see so fast after Harmonic Ike, so this is going to be giving you the flat damage reduction in both of the phases, more in the player phase, so he can just go in and kill things because of his Gallop status and then retreat because of the counter built in that. And we have got a new skill in Rejuvenate, so this is going to be an infantry locked skill unlike Patience, and this is much better than Reopening. It does give you the true damage and flat damage reduction based on 20% of your defense. However, it doesn't really place any kind of restriction on you that you don't have to have the Brave effect or anything like that. Instead, you also get the Null Counter Disrupt effect out of this, which is really good, and also 7 HP healing and some debuffs on the foe. There is also the guard effect, but a lot of the times the guard effect isn't really going to be making the biggest difference. And because Alfonse is really slow and has got less than 30 base speed, he is not really going to be a unit that you want to run Patience on. Patience is mainly useful on units that can at least have 30 visible speed, so that's why he has got this new sloppy scale, which does seem like a good option if you don't really want to have the special jumps out of Lagu's Friend, and if you want to have the Null Counter Disrupt effect, so it can be helpful in that regard. And it also doesn't really have any kind of insane restrictions. It's just that in the enemy phase, you would need to have an ally in 3 spaces so that you can get the effect out of it. You cannot really go too deep into the enemy lines and then just stay there, because you're going to be dying and you're not going to be getting the flat damage reduction out of this. So overall, he seems like a really solid unit and an amazing free-to-play unit, honestly. And I'm glad that I did not try and make a free-to-play guide without him in the Harmonic Ike and Lyn battle, because that is an insane map, and Alfonse is definitely the kind of unit that you want for that kind of map. So time will tell how he ages as a tank, but he is certainly much better than Brave Alfonse. He fixes a lot of the issues that he has got, and he also has the Gallop status, which does make him pretty unique, and these chosen heroes are probably going to be the units that we're going to be getting in the future, because we do see chosen Fiarm basically in the trailer, and the other OCs are probably going to be in the slot for the chosen type. And then we also have Rearmed Lysithea from this banner, who is a green infantry mage. So she does have the new arcane tome. It doesn't have arcane in its name, but it is an arcane weapon as they have shown with the icon. So it does have the slaying effect, and at start of turn and after the action, you can inflict -7 speed and resistance debuff, the panic status and the discord status on the closest foes and the foes in 2 spaces of them. So if you're a fast mage, then you can make the full use out of the speed debuffs of this. And Lysithea has got pretty insane flat damage reduction and true damage with her slotty skill, which can help her make the full use out of the panic and the debuffs. And just like the other weapons that we have seen, it just has conditionless +15 to all of your stats. It also gives you 25 true damage and then 15 flat damage reduction. And it also has the 50% damage reduction piercing, just like Arcane Outburst, which I'm not the biggest fan of because I would have liked seeing Preempt Pulse built into this weapon. I think that's something that a lot of units that are older kind of need more than the damage reduction piercing, because most of the damage reduction that we have nowadays is unpierceable. So I hope they stop putting this 50% damage reduction piercing in all of these new arcane weapons. This was the perfect time to maybe make her a staff unit because we really need a new arcane staff. My Mercedes requires that, but I guess we will have to wait more for that. She also brings a new special for the mages in Logic, so this is not just restricted to the infantry mages. This can be inherited by the other mages, and this is going to be having similar scaling to Arc Rival, but it depends on the penalty effects that are active on the foe. So if they are active, then you get the 80% scaling based off your attack. If not, then 70% scaling. And it is also basically like Haste Slice because it gives you the 40% unpierceable damage reduction when you have the player phase. It doesn't really give that to you in your enemy phase. And if the enemy has any kind of penalty active on them, then you also get the special jump before your first attack. I'm going to be making a separate video with the builds with this new Arcane Tome along with Arcane Outburst. I think I'll cover this tome first and then I'll get to Arcane Outburst. So Rearmed Lysithea also has her preferred slotty skill in True Genius, and this does have the 1 HP self damage, and at sort of both player phase and enemy phase, she gives herself and the 2 space allies the +6 attack and speed buff, the Preempt Pulse status, which is really useful, and also the player phase 40% damage reduction status, which we also saw on Harmonic Lyn, which doesn't really do too much nowadays with all of this piercing. And she also gets +9 to all of her stats, and she can get an insane amount of true damage and flat damage reduction based on the combined value of the highest total bonuses among herself and the allies in 3 spaces, and the highest total penalties among the foe and the foes in 3 spaces of that foe. So if you run her with any kind of unit who can give her the Spectrum +6, and if you run more debuffing units on your team that can also debuff the enemy's attack and defense by -7, then you can basically get 41 true damage and 20 flat damage reduction. I have just tried to simplify that, and that's the reason why you see her tanking Fallen Male Lear, despite the fact that she's a green unit and she doesn't have the highest defense. So it's pretty crazy amount of flat damage reduction along with logic and her weapon. And then she's got the full null follow-up and potent 100% hit, which is going to be dependent on the speed check, which she's not going to be having the most trouble in triggering most of the time. And she is going to be having Conjuring Breath as her sloppy skill, which is definitely one of the best skills for any kind of mage because of the innate deep wounds effect built in it. So this is a really useful skill. I wish she got Time Pulse Edge because that would have made sense with her high cooldown special, but I guess Creation Pulse also makes sense with the 2 status effects that she can inflict on the enemy. So Creation Pulse is going to be giving her the special jumping. So overall, Rearmed Lysithea needs some team building to reach her max potential with the visible buffs and also the visible debuffs on the enemies. And if you can get that, then she can be extremely tanky for a mage. And she also has a good amount of true damage that she can just have. And she also has the potent hit, so she can hit relatively hard. And she is going to be the main highlight unit aside from Chosen Alfonse. We also have Ignatz as a premium unit, as a colorless infantry bow, but he doesn't really have that impressive of a weapon. So he's got Watchful Bow, which has -1 special cooldown. He can inflict on the 3 rows and 3 column foes with -5 to all of their stats in the combat. They also suffer 10 true damage, except for the AoE specials, which is a pretty nice supportive effect to have, honestly, as long as you do not face any kind of enemy that has got a feud effect. And he also gives you the 50% damage reduction piercing in combat against those foes. So not the worst support, and having the true damage is actually pretty good for killing a lot of the tanky units that we have nowadays. But outside of that, his weapon for himself doesn't really have any kind of other combat perks. So he has got the conditionless, +10 to all of his stats, 25 true damage and 15 flat damage reduction, and just preempt pulse. So the 10 true damage is the main thing that he can provide, and I guess he himself can also have a good amount of true damage with the effect that he has got with his weapon and the exposure debuff. Unfortunately, they did not give him Ice Wall. I would have loved to have that special on him because he is going to be in the normal summon pool, and Ice Wall is a special that a lot of mages need. So they did not put that. At least they have got perfect attack speed on him, and he also has speed defense havoc, which can be useful on a lot of the high resistance archers like Ronin and Shura. So that is finally in the skill pool. So Ignatz can get the Kanto status out of it, and he is going to be in the normal summon pool, unlike Chosen Alfonse and Rearmed Lysithea that we have got on this banner. We also have a demote unit in Lorenz, but he's also going to be given out as a quest reward with 2 copies of him at 5-star. So he is a Blue Mage Cavalier, and he has got a stat spread that is a bit similar to Bruno. It's just that the offenses are flipped. So Bruno has got a bit more speed, but here Lorenz has got more attack and less speed. He does have Blar Sparrow Plus as his inertable weapon, which is an alright weapon, I guess, because it does have the true damage that can be given, and it also has the full damage reduction piercing. So on a budget, that can be a decent weapon. And he also has the Fortress 3, which is something that we need on these kinds of demoted units. It's about time that we get a lot of these skills on these demoted units so that they can help us with the bridge fodder. And then we're also going to be getting Raphael as the Grand Tour Battle unit, which is honestly a bit odd for me. I was thinking that maybe Akron could be the Grand Tour Battle unit. Raphael could be like the instant demote or the quest reward character. So he is an axe armor, and he is, I believe, going to be the highest scoring free-to-play unit that we get. And he also has Assault Troop as one of his skills. He does have an inertable weapon, not a perfect weapon, and he has just got enough speed to make use of Patience, the skill that Harmonic Ike has got, but his resistance does not seem all that high. So that just leaves Leonie. I wish they also had Judith. Even she could have been the Grand Tour Battle unit, honestly. I would have loved that, and they could have given her a preferred weapon. So it does seem like a bit of a missed opportunity. And this banner is not really all that insane. December is a pretty stacked month with the end of the month banner that is likely going to be an emblem unit. And we also get a winter banner that is going to be sparkable for everyone. And the winter units are usually much better than the banner units, so you should certainly be waiting for that. So I want to thank all of my team members for their constant support, and you can click the link on the screen right now to check out my breakdown for the Harmonic Ike and Lin banner. And make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Leone after seeing this banner. So with that, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.